Good morning and welcome to Deadline Press Agency's roundup of today's top stories in the Scottish newspapers. It's Wednesday the 4th of November.
I'm Rory Reynolds.
And I'm Oliver Faramond. Let's start with the Daily Express. On the front page, it was a seismic day yesterday for both the UK's banking sector and for the European Union. And the Scottish Daily Express have declared that it is the end.
Quite alarming words from the Express here, saying that this is the end of the UK and that the country's been sold down the river.
This news comes as Czech President Václav Klaus signed the Lisbon Treaty, and David Cameron was forced into a U-turn after announcing in 2007 that a Conservative government would have a referendum. He sent William Hague out to face the cameras over his decision last night.
On page 7 of the Express today as well, a story that Edinburgh City Council will replace any failing street signs with ones in English and in Gaelic. And they've received some criticism over this because just 60,000 people in Scotland speak Gaelic, and I think it said 1 in 100 in Edinburgh. They've also added here that it will be on the top of letterheads, emails, documents and promotional materials from the council.
It's difficult to cost this project because the signs will be put up on a case-by-case basis, i.e. if a sign breaks, the replacement will go up with the Gaelic translation underneath. Only 4,000 people in Edinburgh speak or read Gaelic, and a further 2,000 understand it. And with the capital already very congested, a lot of road signs with all the roadworks, and it's been called a very costly piece of political posturing by the Taxpayers Alliance.
Page 1 of the Times, and their main story today is the race to find a president for the European Union. They've said here Europe's elite celebrated the arrival of the first president, and they've got a dramatic headline here, From Nights of Anguish to Dawn of a New Europe. And a story in a lot of the papers today is on page 4 and 5 in the Times. This is the news that Simon Mann, who conspired with several other Brits to overthrow the government of Equatorial Guinea, will be freed from prison after nearly 4 years. He said he's returning to Britain with a story worth a splodge of wonga, as he said, and the former SAS and Scots Guardsman is also conspired with Sir Mark Thatcher. On page 20 of the Times, a story about Scottish universities. Universities are at risk from Mandelson's plan to boost funding to English institutions, and Lord Sutherland has said that Scottish unis need tuition fees to keep up.
Following yesterday's pictures that were released of Madeleine McCann, her twin brother and sister, who are now 4 years old, have vowed to fight whoever has kidnapped her. That's on page 1 of the Scottish Daily Mirror today. And going a bit deeper into the paper, there's a couple of nice stories. On page 21, some lads in Manchester hassled a BBC reporter as he was out on a job. Parish Patel, however, was a black belt in karate and floored them with a punch and a kick to the groin. So who says the BBC's lost its clout?
The Mirror liked this story so much, they've even done an editorial on the BBC reporter's actions. They said he should be promoted to crime-fighting correspondent. On the front page of the Scottish Sun today, a baby is fighting for its life after contracting the disease botulism, and this is at the Sick Kids Hospital in Edinburgh. It's thought that little Logan Douglas, who's just 16 weeks old, is the first tot in Scotland to contract this in 30 years.
His condition is being described by medics as critical but stable, and it's thought that the baby contracted botulism by sucking on a dummy which might have been dipped in honey, which is not recommended for children under the age of 1.
And on page 12, a story from the Scottish political correspondent. Convoys of Scots will head south to England to escape high taxes on booze. That's under plans by the SNP to raise alcohol. And they've cited an example of Northern Ireland where off sales went up by 30% in just 1 year after the Republic of Ireland government raised them dramatically.
This ties in nicely with a big photo spread earlier in the paper over pages 4 and 5, a collage of people who are obviously very, very drunk, lying around in various Scottish towns. Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, there's a chap drinking from a cone there, and a bunch of people who've passed out at the end of the night. Blackout Scotland is the message here.
The Scottish Sun's features desk went out on Halloween to take pictures of this, and there are images of a lot of people dressed up for Halloween, but lying on the pavement.
Top story in the Daily Telegraph today on page 1 at the top. £4,350 is the burden each British family will have to bear as the taxpayers' stake in the banks was increased yesterday. There's a lot of figures flying around about this today, and it's easy to get kind of a bit bogged down in them, but that's a good way of making the figures relatable. And along with the news that as part of this deal, Lloyds TSB and the Royal Bank of Scotland will be broken up thanks to EU competition laws, Alex Salmond has urged that senior figures in the Scottish financial industry take advantage and that these new banks that are being created be headquartered and be based in Scotland.
Finance Secretary John Swinney wrote a letter to Alistair Darling urging him to keep jobs, finance jobs in Scotland.
After some dramatic shark pictures in the press last week, a few more today. There's a picture in the Telegraph and in the Scotsman, and on page 15 of the Telegraph you can see a great white shark looking right at the camera with a big toothy grin. A photo from that same underwater photo shoot on page 17 of the Scotsman. We can see the 12-foot great white shark looking right at the photographer. On the front page of the Scotsman, a story about a chap called Tim Nicholson. A judge ruled in London that his beliefs on climate change were equivalent in law to religious beliefs, and this is after he took his employer to a tribunal claiming discrimination over those beliefs.
Nicholson said that the property firm he worked for, Granger, showed contempt for his belief and that his boss even flew a colleague to Ireland to deliver a BlackBerry that was left in London.
Lawyers have remarked that this ruling could open a floodgate of new types of cases.
And on page 7 of the Herald, a story that Kate Winslet has accepted £25,000 in libel damages from Associated Newspapers. This was after an article in the Daily Mail which claimed that she had lied about her exercise regime.
On the front page of the Daily Record, the man who found £1 million worth of treasure has been named as David Booth, who works at Safari Park. On page 4, a story about Dave Kerr, who is the SNP's candidate for the Glasgow North East by-election. Apparently he was in Asda and went up to a fish stall and asked the bemused shopkeeper what she was selling, and she replied, fish. And there's a great photo here of the moment just after, where the woman is kind of explaining what she's doing. Dave Kerr's laughing and Alex Salmond looks like he's having a great time.
The Record also noting that on Monday they revealed how Kerr claimed that he was born in Cumbernauld when he fought the Falkirk West constituency, and now he's claiming he was born in Denniston when he was actually born in the south side of Glasgow.
Thank you very much for listening. That's the top stories in the Scottish newspapers today. I'm Oliver Faramond.
And I'm Rory Reynolds.
And we'll see you tomorrow morning.